Welcome to AI Now with Oracle, a series where we explore the world of enterprise artificial intelligence and its impact on the way we work. I'm Miranda Nash, GVP of Oracle AI, and in each episode, we'll dive deep into the latest trends, breakthroughs, and considerations surrounding AI technology. Whether you're an AI enthusiast, a business leader, or just curious about the future, this series is for you. This week, I'm welcoming Parag Vaish from Evolv Technology to discuss AI for good in public safety. Before we dive in, just some quick housekeeping notes. Feel free to use whatever platform you're tuning in on to ask all your burning AI questions or provide your own insights and expertise. We'll do our best to respond to as many of your questions as possible, and who knows, maybe your inquiries or comments will even inspire one of our upcoming episodes. Okay, let's get into it. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome Parag Vaish. Thank you so much for joining us, Parag.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So I'm pretty familiar with Evolv Technology, but maybe some of the folks here aren't. Can you share kind of the 90-second version of what you all do?
Sure. Evolv Technology is a publicly traded company that's about 10 years old. We provide security services for various types of businesses to make their places safer for people to work, live, learn, and play. We do that through enhancing technology and AI security for them.
Now, you've had a very interesting career, many great companies along the way. What led you to Evolv?
This is a transformational opportunity and AI for good. So making places safer for all of us to do the things we want to do without fear of violence is our aspiration. Now, I've worked for great companies like Tesla and eBay and various other places in healthcare. And those companies are great for what they do as well, and I'm very proud of those. But at Evolv, it's hard to argue with the potential for making people safer to do all the things they'd love to do.
Absolutely, and let's talk more about that. I mean, when we think about physical security, what's the role of AI? What is that market like?
Yeah, and physical security has to be defined. So what the space is evaluating individuals for weapons. This is guns, bombs, knives, it's that category. And so what we do is provide technologies that screen individuals discreetly, as well as if they have a brandished weapon, for the different nefarious items. Our customers are folks like SoFi Stadium, Fenway Park, Lincoln Center, hundreds of schools, hospitals, places of worship. And they use our technology at the front entrance of their facility to screen those individuals for weapons. Now, what's unique about our technology is you don't have to remove the devices and items that you have that are innocuous and non-threatening. So an iPhone, keys, wallet, those sorts of things. You can walk through our systems and we'll know that those are not nefarious items. Versus if you did have a gun, bomb, or knife, we can evaluate whether or not those things are harmful to the environment.
That's so fascinating. And it's, we do deal mostly in the digital world here at Oracle. And it's so fascinating. You're integral to the physical world.
That's right.
And AI must be kind of real time in that situation. I'm interested in what that looks like. How does it work? What does it mean to the security guard and the security person in the moment?
Yeah, it's a companion to the security system that the company has, the individual has. So if you think about a security guard, they're dealing with hundreds of people coming into the venue, if it's a sports stadium or a school at the busy times. And this technology is evaluating each of those people without them having to stare at a screen. They're not looking at, as you said, the digital screen for every x-ray of every person to say this person's clear or not. We can assess them. If secondary screening is necessary, our systems would identify where the weapon is on the individual and indicate with a red light that this person has some item. And then they go to secondary screening where the human, the security guard, would then take the steps that they would normally take to evaluate whether that is truly a nefarious item.
So one of the things we talk about in finance, for example, is managing by exception. And you're absolutely managing by exception. You don't want to distract, presumably, the security person with every iPhone and other.
That's exactly right. And in fact, actually, that improves the security posture because those human individuals can then focus on the environment. They can look people in the eye, even improve the business. They can greet them better. We have examples where teachers are now looking at the individual and knowing that somebody's having a bad day. They can help them through that. They can identify if there's somebody who's having a tussle with someone else, possibly even get ahead of it before it becomes a problem that results in someone bringing a knife or a gun to school. Those are the kind of things that are the human element, that when you enable people to focus on just what's happening in real life and remove all the distraction, you get these kind of outcomes.
That's so powerful. One of the things we talk about with AI agents is that they're elevating the role of the human and making it more human. And that's kind of what you're describing here.
Yeah.
Tell me more about how you think of the human in this picture.
Yeah, I mean, we use very similar language. So we look at how do we do human-centered design? And that comes across in all of our products. How we make it such that individuals practically don't even know they're being screened for weapons. So we have many folks who pass through sports stadiums where they had a previous metal detector or something else. And in our systems, sometimes they hardly know they've been screened at all. And so that's bringing the human element back. It's enjoyment of the environment. Then there's the business impact, where if you have higher throughput at the entrance to a stadium, that means more people are in the stadium faster. They're not the long lines that everyone remembers, and they're probably having a more enjoyable time, might be spending more, buying more items on the inside. So the ROI calculation is also an element to this.
Okay, you teed it up. So let's talk about what makes your technology successful for a customer. How do you measure success?
Yep, success is measured in a variety of ways. I'll start at the top. We screen more people than TSA does on a daily basis. Think about that for a moment, Miranda. Every person who passes through an airport on a single day, we will screen more people than those who are passing through the airports. So the scale is the first element of measurement. The second is weapons. We have our customers tag about 500 guns per day. That's a lot. That's a big deal. So you take the TSA number first, and then you say 500 guns per day. Third is that there are about 350 million people in the US and about 450 million guns. If you remove children, that means there's about 2 guns per adult in the United States. So that's clearly a big problem, and not getting smaller from anything that we can tell. And that's why our customers are needing to have their places to be more secure. Now, that's just a numerical representation of what does success look like. The non-numerical is the letters that we get from our customers. The things that they tell us about how it's improved the environment, both physically, this physical safety, but also the psychological safety. Nurses, doctors who might have been previously threatened because a patient's relative brought in a weapon for some reason, they can do the best work of their lives and focus on their trade versus the fear of somebody having, a violent reaction to their job.
That is so powerful. AI for good is infused in really everything you're saying here. One thing we hear about as a concern from some customers is bias in AI. And sometimes, at least for example, in an HR setting, there are actually examples where the AI can really bring a lot more even-handedness or fairness, right? Because there's no inherent bias. So I'm interested how you think about that element of.
Yeah, it's once again similar language to what we use. So our systems evaluate an individual and identify where the item in question would reside. So if you had a gun on your ankle, we would identify to the security guard that there's a red box on your right ankle, which is what has set off the alarm. That has nothing to do with the individual. We're not identifying anything about the attributes or behaviors of the person. We're simply identifying where the item in question would reside. And that allows the security professional to pull that person aside because there's just reason to do so, rather than any other reason. So if you think about pat downs or wanding, those are inaccurate. They're very dependent upon the individual who's doing that assessment and how diligent they are. This is removing all of that and saying, let's identify where the item in question is, not the person in question, and then separate those two.
That's so powerful, and really enforcing fairness in that way, and helping the human do what they're best at, like you said, which is interacting or scanning the environment while the AI does its job really well. Yeah, that's very powerful. You talked a little bit about customer success and how you measure that in the metrics. One thing we're observing is that customers who are really getting deep into AI in one area of their business see some crossover benefits to other areas. Have you experienced that either with Evolv itself or with your customers? Yeah,
the generative AI space is where I see that the most. So what we started at Evolv is doing a bunch of internal projects that were generative AI in nature. And those were designed for efficiency, possibly lead generation, some of the support mechanisms we have for our customers. Those are the things we started with. And when it started in one area, other teams and departments had that crossover effect of learning, what's happening in one department, and it cascaded. Then we started graduating projects to be customer facing. And that became the mechanism to say, let's prove it ourselves. Let's identify the opportunity. Let's test it, make sure the technology works for ourselves, and then take it to customers. So we're right at that stage now where the crossover effect is happening, where it's both intra-company, but then also we can pass it along to our customers in an intercompany way.
So AI is your core business, but it's also improving your business, it sounds
absolutely.
like.
Yeah, absolutely. Efficiency is the key word. So lead generation, I mentioned. The ability to identify service and support needs faster, better, arming our people with training materials, even HR related things that can be answered through generative AI bots. It just should be the way. And so we're making that, part of the fabric of our company now.
Makes sense. We are too. And, things changed. You mentioned it with generative AI, right? A couple of years ago. I'd be interested to hear more about what that looked like to you, and looking ahead as well, Agentic AI. We're there today as well.
Yeah,
so what
absolutely.
are your thoughts?
Yeah, so generative AI was, as you said, new a couple of years ago, and it's something that was built into the way in which we constructed our product management team. They're using all kinds of tools to be faster, more efficient, and better. When you talk about Agentic AI, it's so acute in the physical security space because it is a series of process steps. If you think about the assessment of an individual, and then they have an item that's nefarious, they're taken to secondary screening. What happens if they did have a gun on their ankle? Well, most times it's an individual says, sorry, I didn't realize that I had that. Maybe it's a state where you can carry weapons in a concealed fashion. And so the guard asks them to take it back to their car or wherever. Well, we have other technologies that look to see whether or not guns are brandished, so visible. So if that individual is now in the parking lot and then showing a gun, we have a different technology that can identify that that gun is present. These are a series of steps where the Agentic AI concept can be employed to increase the efficiency. You can know that there's an item that was discovered. You can indicate to the guard what to do in that instance. It's possible that guard might be the first day on the job and they don't know the policies of that particular entity. These are all different process steps that Agentic AI can fit into every single step of the way to improve it.
That is so interesting. You're using AI at the core for weapons detection as well as Agentic AI to automate all the process around that core action.
Yeah, absolutely. The term you're getting to is people, process, and technology. And it's so critical in our business because the human in the loop is where the opportunity is to increase the effectiveness of security. But ultimately, the people need to be effective at their job as well in the security space. So you have the technology that we offer, and then the people side of it, we can improve or enhance the process that they go through. So putting the right information in front of them, making it most accessible, giving instructions on the specific steps to undertake to improve that security posture. It's a holistic approach with those three things combined.
One thing I think is really interesting about your story for some of our digital-centric customers is it's got to work, your AI. And people's lives are depending on it. That's very serious. So I'm interested to hear how you think about that at Evolv and what that means.
Yeah, it's important to know that no technology solution is perfect. And we try our best to make sure the technology is working in a way that is identifying as many nefarious items as possible. Now, we do send people to secondary screening, which is where the individual is then assessing whether or not the item in question that we raised is truly in question. And so in the event that that doesn't pass, then it's possible for weapons to get through. And so the technology can work, but it's in companionship with the partner, with the individual to do what they need to do as well.
Right, the AI-human combination, obviously, very powerful. What a great story of AI for good, Parag. Thank you so much. I'm, lightening it up a little bit. What are you doing for fun right now with AI? How are you using AI in your daily life or anything to share, little tidbits? Yeah,
there's so many different things. So I use Claude regularly for, the partnership to be a thought partner with me to identify, how to write something or how to think about it, get quick answers. But on the other end of the spectrum, in the fun side, I learned about a new capability at South by Southwest. This is a lot of fun to play with. It's called Go Zigzag. There's an individual who is a professor, I believe, at the University of Colorado, and he spoke at South by Southwest, and he said, I have thousands of business plans, pitch decks, investor memos, and so on. And he created a tool that with a couple of sentences about a startup or a business you want to create, it'll give you a competitive landscape, the revenue model, all of the cost structure, your messaging, mission statement, vision, elevator pitch. It'll even create a template of a website for you all on the fly in seconds. It's amazing. So it's a fun tool to play with. I don't think most people know about it, but it shows actually Agentic AI in a really creative way because they tap into other tools that exist to pull into one specific interface. It's pretty remarkable.
Interesting, fun, heartwarming. Parag, thanks so much for joining us. And thank you for tuning in. If you want more updates, musings, and AI news, make sure to subscribe to Oracle's YouTube channel and follow us on social media. See you next time.